All right, welcome to another episode of what I'm calling the VR Creators Podcast, and I am joined by not Trash Games. That's not a good name. Trass, Trass. How did you guys end up coming up with that name? Where did that come from?
That's the beginning of the journey, which I can get into.
Go for it. Yeah, let us know
Yeah,
like who you are and like what you're doing and whatnot.
yeah. So I'm Jack at Trass Games, one of the, developers and founders of the studio.
Yeah.
I thought Steve.
Do you
Do
want to
you want,
Yeah,
introduce?
yeah.
do you want- I can talk about the
Yeah.
more.
I'm Steve at Trass Games, and I am also one of the founders and developers. And yeah, there's just three of us, but we wear many
Nice,
hats. So yeah,
as you do in a startup.
yeah.
No, yeah. I primarily handle the creative direction. I also am one of the two coders on the project, but also there is a little bit of a journey behind Trass Games that starts longer ago than you might think. It goes back to, unfortunately, Nathan's not here today, one of the other founders. But Nathan and I actually met back in high school. I don't know. I may, I think I look young. I'm 21. We, but we met. She must have been 8 years ago in freshman year of high school, and we both just loved making games. And coincidentally just happened to sit on the same patch of cement one day eating our lunch and met. And he was like, somehow Unity came up, and I was like, I love Unity. I want to try to learn Unity. And then he showed me this like ball game. He had a 3D ball like going around in Unity, and I was like, oh my god, like we need to start making games. And so we did, and we became best friends very quickly, and just every day we would work on random games. Games that we would be playing ourselves at lunch. There was no target audience. There was none of that. There was no user testing. It was just us playing the games that we loved making. And out of that passion, we just kept making games. We'd always sort of have like these ridiculous ideas and then come up with some really wacky game. And then midway through making it, there's this other idea. And so we pivot and go work on another project. And we must have had like 20 different projects all throughout high school. But as we got older, it we started to realize that it wasn't just us who were enjoying our games, and we started um, experimenting with VR. I got my first Vive back in senior year of high school. I remember playing super hot, like dodging all the things, and playing onward with the lying on my ground, like prone,
Yes.
trying to like aim down this jittery sight by holding my hands up. Um, and I was really captivated by the medium. I think, we both were like, wow, there's really something here that's different. I'd been a long time gamer playing on flat screen PC, and um, there's just something about VR that's just fundamentally different. The immersiveness, and um, when we realized, hey, it's actually not hard to develop for VR, we were like, we need to do this. And so we started adapting some of our old games that we'd made into VR, because I guess we didn't have any ideas of uniquely VR concepts at the time. So our first one was this adaptation of this game where you're swinging through an asteroid belt, and there's this huge space worm charging behind you, crashing through asteroids and trying to eat you. So we built that with like two grappling hooks, and you're swinging around. And as soon as we got into our own world, and you emerge out of this spaceship and then start like swinging around, we were like, wow, I can't imagine making a flat screen game ever again.
Yeah.
And we kept at it. That game we presented in some showcase at our high school, but we had bigger and better things. Our next project was this one about sharks in the ocean, and well, frankly, they have lasers on their heads, and they get increasingly more ridiculous. You have harpoon guns, but then you like blow up them, and then out of their guts you can get like a cannon, and then you strap on a cannon and start blowing things up. And with that game, that's sort of how Trass Games emerged. Um, it was just a saying in our high school friend group that something would be Trass. And it's actually, we had a lot of contractions, and that one meant, well, it's actually a contraction of troll and ass. But it mainly just meant
That's
something that was
fantastic.
utterly ridiculous. And no one really knew what it meant, but we just kept saying, "Oh, that's so trass, bro!" Like, and so it really just stuck on, and then unfortunately it stuck. And
That's
now it
hilarious.
is a company, a legal entity. But that shark game got us some recognition from the very friendly people at the Oculus Start program. Specifically, Rita was our contact there, and one of the, I don't know if she still manages the program, but she was really a great figure for us. Got us in the program, and from there, we did a little bit game jam in the program. We actually were one of the winners of that, which was a pretty cool project. That I won't get into right now. But with that, we were sort of set on the path towards the Quest store. It was really our dream, though it seemed very, far out. I mean, we were there just a bunch of like, at the time we were, starting college, and it was like, wow, there are studios of like really like experienced people, and they have budgets, and look at all these really great games that are out on this like curated store. Like, it's gonna be a, like, wow. It's a hard goal to get to, but I guess the passion really drove us through. We worked on Gods of Gravity starting, and we started it over the pandemic while we were both just sitting inside, I guess. And
Yeah.
it was a cool way. We know we wanted to make a multiplayer game, a way to connect with other people, and it's just something to get us out of the out of our basements. And it was really cool when we started getting the early prototypes, and just being in the same space as somebody was so cool. And so that passion just kept us going through. And now I'm in a fast track, but then we got Steve on board as we launched onto App Lab. And I can talk about this process more, but we were in App Lab for a year. That was a year after a year of development. So year of development, no App Lab, then App Lab, for a year, and just blood, sweat, and tears. Finally, we made it. We made it. And
Yeah.
I can of course answer questions about, because that is a huge,
You're like, yeah, so we just
That's
like
a huge
worked
one.
it,
but that is
it's
the
tough.
big picture journey of
Yeah.
at Trass Games. And now we're here on the Quest store with Gods of Gravity, and we're so excited to continue working on the game. It's I always think about it. It's like, have you watched South Park?
A little bit. I'm not like super into it, but I know like the main characters and themes.
Yeah. Well, there's one classic episode, Make Love Not Warcraft, which, if you don't know it, basically there's just this one quote. They spend the whole time, the characters like going on this like huge like quest to like vanquish this like enemy, and then at the end they're like they finally did it, and they're like, oh wow, like what do we do now? We just like spent no life played World of Warcraft for like a week straight, and then the other person's like, what do you mean, like now we can finally play the game?
Yeah.
So that's like kind of what it felt like, for us at least. Nathan and I having gone on this whole like journey with this whole goal, and then we got released on the store, and it's like we like finally did it, and then it's like, okay, no, this is like,
Oh,
now we're like,
we're
Just
just
this is,
starting.
yeah.
Now it's getting
Nice.
crazy. Yeah, we're working a lot
Yeah.
more hours now, I'd say, than when we were doing the App Lab and it was out,
Yeah.
for a year. And
Yeah.
I'll say that's the exciting thing is, like, as you can see, like Nathan and Jack have had a long history. They've been together for a long, long time, and I didn't come on until the App Lab, basically. And one of my favorite things about working with these two is they have a shorthand, but also when I came on board, we just jumped right in and we became a unit, and we just clicked. And the ideas are here, and we just, anything we want to do, we want to share, we talk about, and there's no like, oh, you're not, we've been doing this a long time, let us talk about it. It's just we're all equal partners, and we all have ideas, and we all have fun thoughts. And I think that's the most exciting thing is, like, Jack and Nathan just welcomed me into the project, and I became instantly, a co-founder of the company, co-founder of the game, and just was able to build with them and have just an absolute blast over the past
Nice.
year and some change.
No, yeah, it does
I
help
have
that.
so many questions.
Yeah,
So,
luckily,
first off, for the people who don't know, what is Gods of Gravity? So this is your first game that's been
yes,
released, right?
that would
Officially.
be a good question to answer. Yeah, so Gods of Gravity is a free to play social RTS game, real time strategy. You play as gods of and harness the powers of gravity to collect ships and throw them from your home planet outward to take over the solar system. You throw them at planets to take them over and expand your sort of galactic territory. And it's a multiplayer game, so you're fighting opponents in real time, and you can chat with them, have a good time. Traditionally, you've fought them, gone head to head, and we have a great competitive scene. But also now we're excited to be adding more co-op play into the game, so you can really team up with your friends and have a fun time fighting and taking over the galaxy one solar system at a time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So fun fact, I was actually almost late to this podcast because I was playing Gods. I was like, well, I haven't played the game yet, so I should like jump into it. And then I'm like glance down at my watch as I'm playing it. I'm like, just a few more minutes. I could play just a few more minutes. I was because
Awesome.
I'm very much like a strategy buff. Like I really like the strategy type games. And this one's like a really, really interesting twist on like the VR interactions of how you would do a strategy game, and I really, really enjoy it so far. Like I've just gone through like the first like couple campaign like levels, and it's super, super fun. Like I'm probably gonna go back and play it after this podcast is over because I'm like, oh, I should have been playing this a while back. It's super fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things that excites me most about the game, besides just our community and all the support there, but the thing that I love about it as a fundamental level is, and this is what I think makes any VR game great, is that it's not possible outside of VR. Like, I think
Yeah.
strategy games have been around for a long time, and it's always the same interactions, right? You're kind of top down, you select, you click. It's a point and click, top down. But Gods of Gravity really puts you into the experience in the way VR should. And what I mean by it's not possible is Gods of Gravity is fully 3D. Some of the maps sort of have like the planets and stuff orbit on like a flattish plane. But even there, right, you can throw ships and they have like this physics prediction so that they'll like arc over and go around planets and stuff. And you can even be in the battle itself as like the enemy is throwing ships in from this side and you're like coming up and you're guiding your army with gravity, throwing more, getting reinforcements, and especially then once the maps get fully 3D, it's just like you're in the space, you're looking up at like these planets and stuff. It's like, where do I go next? You throw upwards or you're throwing down on people, and it's a ton of fun. I think it's very
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
immersive.
And it's like a relatively simple, like the interactions are simple. Like it's very easy to understand and kind of get the hang of it right off the bat. And then it's just like the complexity is in the strategy, which is like, what you want. You don't really want to be thinking about like, oh, what button like did I need to press in order to like do that? It's like you press the trigger or the grip, and then like you can do the whole game basically, which is super important, I think, for a lot. And I think that's the direction a lot of VR games are heading here in the future, is like how do you really simplify like all the interactions and the buttons and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things about how we approached, Gods of Gravity with the VR aspect is you have to make it basic for people who are coming in for either new to VR or barely experienced. So you have to make the onboarding good, and you also have to make the base mechanics simple to learn. But what we found and what some of the more competitive players have said is like there's a high skill ceiling. So you can get the basics in 5 minutes, but to really be excellent and good, you can go as far as you want. You can take it, you can practice every day, and some people do. Some people have been on every single day since we've been on the App Lab and have been with us in this entire journey. And you watch some of their movement, and the three of us go, "We didn't. How are they doing that? How are they moving that fast?" Yeah, it's like we've been here the whole time. Like they're just so fast and so accurate, and you just see the skills just climb, and it's a step and an evolution. And it's really amazing to see the community just going as far as they want to go.
That's super cool. I'm definitely interested in, I guess, your like, so first off, how did you come up with the game idea? And then like how did like that become like from idea to like, I guess, your first like, putting it on App Lab? Like what was that process like?
Yeah, so I guess I have to speak on that one. So the way Nathan and I have developed our games in the past is it's really, you start with something like the one base mechanic that really makes the game. And for this game, it was just the gravity interaction of like gathering and throwing ships and the like the orbiting around and stuff, and just that core interaction. And then we sort of like build it almost just day by day, or even less than day by day. You're like, okay, like where does this go? And like we don't really like, we definitely are a more agile sort of framing there. So I think the start of the game, it was like we had this old game, because I'd said we've been adapting our old games. So we had this game called Flick Ship, which was in fact based on a paper game, but it was this game that we had it on, it was like an iPhone or something, and it was a versus strategy game, and it was turn based, but you had like some ships here, and you're kind of like in space and there's asteroids, but the core mechanic was that you, with each ship, you could either like Angry Bird style like launch it forward, and that would be like you had one movement per ship. So it was either you like pulled it back in place and then release it, it would go like shoot up and then go somewhere, and then it would like expand your vision or whatever, or you could like shoot with it. And we were like, okay, we got to make, it was called Flick Ship. We were like, we got to make Flick Ship in VR. And then it just sort of, yeah, it was like, obviously it wasn't going to be turn based, but we just had ships, and then we had like planets, and we had orbiting, and we just like, it was mainly, I liked the idea of you could throw ships, and that was the core thing.
All right.
And then from there, we kind of had constraints of like VR, like, okay, but how would that work well in VR? And it just sort of, okay, well, you fling ships, and then they orbit. And we like the idea of like, oh, like it's kind of like an orbit simulation. Like maybe you can throw ships between planets and stuff. And so you play the game right now, and there's it's pretty easy to do that, right?
Yeah.
They go and orbit around, and they'll like do their thing. When we first made the game, we actually had like an 100% physics accurate gravity simulation, and this was like week one of the game, and we were like, wow, like this is literally like rocket science to try to like get this to actually work. Like you don't know how hard it was to like try to like tug ships to like change their orbit and like send them out to the other one. And then so we added a bunch of nice things that still make it kind of have that same idea but be a lot more approachable.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
It was just funny because everything sort of emerged, just there was no grand plans. It was just, okay, what's fun? And we just iterate. And so my dad's been a longtime big fan of mine, but also has been an advisor alongside Nathan and I throughout our entire career, I guess, since we were kids. And he spent like 30 years in UX design and things. So he was always very critical and giving like a lot of feedback and very involved with the sort of experience. So helping cater us the way. And I remember one of the most controversial things that was like a whole debate back in the day of the like week one of Gods of Gravity's creation was like, my dad was advocating, he was like, you should be able to like collect ships in your hand and then throw them. And Nathan and I were like, what do you mean collect them in your hand? Like because before you just had to tug them around, and like you could kind of like, it was just like so janky. And then we implemented when we implemented that mechanic, and like finally we're like, fine, we'll just go like see how it is if you could collect ships and throw them. And we called it in the code, I think it's still called dad throwing in the code. And well, obviously throwing stuck, and then we just improved the interactions, started getting the multiplayer working, and we had a basic version we released on App Lab that had like a few maps that were very basic, and we had, it was multiplayer. There was a server list. You could create a room, you could join one, you could throw ships, make wormholes. But really there was a lot of the strategy was completely different, and it was a lot less refined. I mean, in many, many ways. But through interacting with the community, we just kept refining it. We run like beta. We had and still do like beta programs where it's just an open beta, and so we'll just be, as soon as we have new content, we just are releasing it. And when we were on App Lab, like we had a community of players who really took interest in the game, and it was small, but it was very, very passionate. And we we just would honestly like release updates just to the live branch, like as soon as we were making them, like not we didn't really like not bug testing or anything. We just send them out, and then the game was getting updated like every day or two, and people were just having a blast. Just, I mean, there was a lot of jank, but it was a lot of fun to
In
really
true
develop the
agile
game.
form.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was very, very much agile development, and we've had to slow down and be a little bit more careful as the game has gotten closer and past store release as the community's grown. So we don't quite do that anymore, but we like to think that, I mean, working with the communities, I really think what got us here. I mean, you wouldn't have a game that so many people like enjoy playing if you didn't really
Even this
interact with
update
them
we're
in
working
that
on
way.
right now, we're working on an update that'll come out this Thursday, and it's all about that co-op. And we put out the game as a single player and a multiplayer, which we all have been doing for a long time. But we got feedback from multiple people about co-op, and we started talking about it. At first, like no, but then we started talking more, and it evolved from this nugget of an idea into like this full-fledged system of what we could do. And just that evolution and what we're going to release on Thursday that we all are really excited about and in love with came from the spark of somebody leaving feedback like, hey, I want to play this with my wife. And that was it. That was the feedback. Like, I want to play with this with my wife, but I can't play with her. We don't want to get in a multiplayer game and go versus against people. We want to work together and beat a mission. And we're like, but that's it. So these sparks of ideas or little thoughts that the community has, we really do look at everything and take everything into account, and then weigh options and go, okay, how can we do this? Would this be beneficial to the game and the community? And you can see the stuff that we've evolved from. And you go back from like the very, very first App Lab version compared to now, and you just go, gosh, it's amazing. We even put out a TikTok series called Trash from the Past, and just going back and watching that every now and then, you're like, that's unbelievable how far we've come. So yeah, it's just, that's the thing that excites me, I think, is just evolving with the game, with ourselves and with the community, and just keeping people interested and engaged and wanting to play and wanting more. That's the other thing, is constantly they want more and more and more. And we're like, we're trying, we're doing the best we can, but we're 3 people. You've got to give us a little bit of time. And we put out a huge update in January that introduced a new game mode, new god. Now this is a ranked update and a co-op update, and it's just like back-to-back updates very quickly after launch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We definitely go balls to the wall here. I don't know. But,
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can say that.
I mean, luckily Nathan and I were able to, we graduated 2 quarters early, so we were able to
Nice.
well,
So is this your like full-time job? Does it make enough money to like, be a full-time studio thing yet?
well, it's I mean, it is my full-time job right now. I graduated, I actually graduated from college, and Nathan and I at the same time somehow, and right as the game launched, like
Oh, nice.
during that, like, so it was actually a very natural, like, okay, well, I mean, school's already a side note, so now I just don't have to worry about it at all, and now I can just work on this. And it was always, my goal, and our goal is for the studio to grow and be sustainable for all of us.
Yeah. So how did you kind of develop that community? You have a really passionate community around you that seems to be pretty decently sized at this point. Was there like a marketing strategy that y'all had, or just like social media, or like how did that kind of come about? How did you get people to know about the game?
It's just really, it's involvement. It's involvement and organic like growth. So one of the things people say all the time is, wow, you guys are really active. Or, whoa, what are you guys doing in the game? You're actually the developer. And that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, is we are in Discord. We are in the game. We are active. We're getting people's feedback. We're talking to people, and we just engage with people, and just, they love it. And it seems, because we're honest and truthful about what we're doing or what we're trying to build, it seems to resonate with people. And that honesty just makes them want to share the game and talk about the game with other people, and then it just starts to grow and grow. And it's been slow. I'll tell you, when I first came on, I tried to push hard, and it was not an instant push. It was not an instant success, and it was just a gradual climb, refining how we wanted to grow the community, just engagement. It was slow, and but I think that's been really beneficial, because you don't get a lot of people who just kind of like come in and come out. You get people who want to be there and want to contribute and want to be part of the community. And I think that's been super important. So the organic growth has definitely been painful in some ways, where we can't go, hey, we've got 50,000 followers on Twitter, but the ones we do have are really engaged and eager and have a good time.
Yeah, and of course, when we released on the Quest store, you get a pretty big boost just based on, I mean, just like appearance of the game. Also, being on the homepage is of course a big advertisement.
Yeah.
And so we experienced, I think we had a 30x growth on the
Nice.
first
Well, there's
weekend of active players.
Last
Yeah.
time I checked, there was only like 400 games or something like that on the Quest store. So I feel like if you just get your game onto the Quest store, like that's a huge accomplishment in and of
No, yeah.
itself.
Oh,
I
it
think
is.
that was our main marketing strategy.
Just get on the store.
Quest store.
That was it.
But it was a lot of organic growth, and Steve's talked about the engagement. I think like for the entire App Lab run, I had to disable it. I think like launch weekend, but I on my phone I had Discord notifications for every message on the entire on our Discord server. So I'd just be responding like all the time to people and just talking, and it's just a great time to interact with them. But we also have done our best to we have no dedicated marketing people, but we also try to, we had a bit of a budget that we were able to work with from our early supporters, and so we're running ads on some TikTok and side quests and things, but nothing crazy. I think I'd have to attribute most of our growth to Oculus store page, homepage recognition, and word of mouth from people, which I think is actually powerful.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what was the process of getting to the Oculus store like? Was there like any special like things that you would have someone else look out for, or like something you would have done different?
Yeah, I feel like in hindsight, I can speak a lot on this process. When people are going into it, and this is where Nathan and I and Steve were before, is it's like there's really no process, right? You kind of look at it and you're like, how do we get to the Quest store? It's like, okay, there's no like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, right? And we talked to some other developers, and they're like, oh, just wait for a tap on the shoulder from Meta. And I was like, okay, well, like, so, what does that mean? Luckily I had our contact, Rita, when we were maybe a couple months on the App Lab, I was like, it's Nathan and I's goal to get on the Quest store. Like, what should we do to try to make that happen? And she basically was like, oh, well, grow the games community and keep working on it. And we were like,
Awesome.
well, okay. So, and honestly for us, we were happy to do that. This project has been one of the most rewarding things I've done in my life so far, which has been great. But we just kept working on it. And then we came back in a couple months, like, okay, we released X amount of updates. Our growth is this, right? These are some metrics. And she was like, okay, I'll check the data. Checks the data and is like, okay, like, you're like kind of ready to like come into at least start the pitching process. And what that means is you have a advisor at Meta who you basically go back and forth with. Our advisor is Brian Darst, really great guy. We love him. But we went back and forth with that with a pitch. It was our first pitch. I'm like, we tore into it the first time, and I was like, okay, we'll restructure this. And you prepare like a slide deck pitch that will be presented in front of a review team at Meta. And then, Brian was like, Brian was like, most people don't get accepted on their first try. And we're like, okay. So we set our expectations low, at least I did. And then I think our review kept getting delayed or something, but eventually, like, we were like, when is it happening? And then he just said like, oh, by the way, like you got approved. And we're like, oh, okay. Like, and so we got approved, and that was when like there was first time ever there was like light at the end of the tunnel, and we were like, oh my god. And then I mean there was still months, and we went through like QA process and things, and a like nail biter on that. But that like getting that pitch approval was crucial, and
That's
I think
a big step.
Yeah, but in hindsight, what my advice would be is Meta is not like Meta wants to have games on their store that will be successful and that will require them to not do a lot. Right. So what that means is that they want studios that will work sort of independently from them and still be successful and be trying to, and not abandon the project, and not like be like begging Meta like, please like do blah blah, like do all these things for us, right? I mean, it's just basic business, right? They just want to have games on there. So what I would say to other developers that are maybe on App Lab is, focus on thinking, what can you do and your team do to be successful that doesn't involve Meta? And what that means, you might be thinking, oh, I'm locked on App Lab, I'm not, I need Meta to go to the store. It's like, okay, you're on App Lab, like, what can you do with that? Okay, you can distribute your game. Okay, you should advertise. Okay, you should grow your community. You should make a plan that involves you just being on App Lab, like, and you can still be successful, right? I think like some games, like I think Cards and Tankards is, it's a very successful game, still on App Lab. So was Gorilla Tag for a while. And if you show you at least have that mindset and that you're dedicated and you are thinking, what can I do? And that's what Meta is, like the signal Meta is getting from you. Then I think it's very natural for them to want to have you on their platform. It's like free money for them, basically,
I think,
with minimal, hand holding there.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, it's the idea of that you're making the most polished game. If this was your game and you put out something and you're expecting it to sell to consumers, you have to be at that point. So you want to make the best possible game you can make. You don't want to like make a game and go, well, when I get on the App Lab or when I get on the Oculus store, I'll do this. No, it's like the idea is you want to have a game that's so solid and complete that when Meta looks at it, they go, well, why wouldn't we put this on the store? And that's a hard part. As Jack kind of mentioned, we had over 18 major updates. Like, I don't even know minor updates, but 18 major content updates with new features, new revisions, and just going at it like we are going to do this and tackle this. It's like training for a prize fight, You're training all the way up there, so you're going to take it as serious as possible. You're going to train every day. You're going to work every day and try your hardest because once you get into the ring, that's where the real work begins. But you have to lay that foundation that all the way up to that point, and it has to be serious and you have to be dedicated, and they'll pick up on that. And they saw how dedicated we were to the game, how dedicated we were to the community, and how much we wanted it to grow. And we laid out our plans for the next 5 months after we got onto Meta. We were like, once we hit the store, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And they saw like, man, these guys seem to be eager and active. And I think that really lent itself to them liking us and wanting to work with us and moving forward.
Nice. Yeah, that's a big thing. It's just like you businessifying it, like basically, like Jack was saying. How are you going to do it even if Meta is not in the picture? Like, how are you going to succeed in having that mindset of like, we're going to, make a game and have a studio that's going to work no matter what. And if Meta comes in and wants to help, then like, awesome.
Right.
But if not, like, you still got a plan. Are you guys, is it just standalone, or do you have like a PC equivalent on like Steam or anything?
Yeah, so right now we're just on Quest. We are playing around with doing a standalone release on Steam later this year. Might happen. We definitely, are excited about bringing the game to the most people possible, though we know as soon as we branch into other platforms, we have more overhead and, we have a small team, so it's it's a bit of a pick and choose
you got a lot of pots
type
in the
situation
fire right now.
Yeah, there are a couple of platforms we're researching for sure.
Yeah,
we're excited about.
That's awesome. So what is your, I guess what, so you it took what, 2 years, 3 years, I guess, of total development to get to this point. Uh,
Yeah.
and then what are you working on now in the game? Or if you like want to disclose it, or just kind of ideas that you're having, or where do you want to take this, or make a new game? What's kind of the future of Trask Games?
Steve, do you want me
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
You don't have to
I was
share
asking if you
it's
wanted to
like
take
No,
this
I
one.
think what we're doing right now is we're working on refinement. So
uh-huh.
you've heard us. We kind of danced around the idea of open, more platforms. And then the idea right now is, okay, if we're continuing to build this out, we're refining it, we're getting feedback. We're taking all these things into account, and now we're trying to make sure the game reaches like that next level. And we're trying to make sure everything is really as polished as it can be. New features are added. We want to make it to a point where if we did go to another platform, it becomes, an instant hit. It becomes something that doesn't fail. It becomes something that we've tested out a lot of different ideas on the store, right? We've tested out some things. Some things have worked really well, some things haven't. We've heard a lot of feedback on features. We've added the co-op stuff. We've added new rank support. So all these things we kind of are working towards and getting to a goal of where we can branch out to other systems. And when we do, it's in a spot that is just unbelievably polished and ready to go. And so I think right now what we're really trying to do is just make sure that we keep people engaged. And we do that by bringing on new features, experimenting with things, and we watch our, player count and see what drives it and what works and what doesn't. And that's something we're really excited about. And then we'll figure out what the next step is. But right now it's Gods of Gravity, and it's expanding to new
Yeah.
platforms and making sure that those are, welcoming and
Unfortunately, from a less exciting but more business standpoint, we're also, focusing on trying to get the best sort of and most straightforward pricing model and figuring out our monetization.
right.
Something that's maybe the fun part for some people, in that you make
It's brutal.
money, but in a very hard part for others. I know, we're a free game, which, Meta was like, that's like, you're playing like on hard mode, And so there are definitely, when we released on App Lab, the game was just completely free. There was just no, it was just App Lab. Everything, it was just a free game. Everyone could play it. And as that, time progressed, the game was getting better and better. People were like, I like can't believe this is free. Like,
What's the
what's going
catch?
on?
Yeah,
Like, where,
exactly.
like, and it was funny. So eventually we had our first sort of in-app purchase test while we were on App Lab, where it was called the Founders Pack, which was basically if you wanted to get some early cosmetics and your name on this like big display that's building or was building on the main menu, then you could pay like 10, or there's two pricing levels of $10, $30. And a lot of people jumped on that just because they wanted to support us. And we were able to use that money for some marketing around the store. But that was just our way of, starting to get into like monetization. A couple months after that, we started changing up how, like now there was basically, we switched to a 3-tier pricing model of like free, and then like it's called basically like free, silver, and gold tier. And there was some things, and um, the game is still like that today. We have some plans to do some rebranding coming on Thursday, which we hope will make things more straightforward to people. It's always, it was hard for us also when we changed to that, because we'd gone from completely free, and if you wanted to support us, you could buy Founders out of like charity, and then it was like, okay, wait, like now if I'm a free player, I all of a sudden don't have access to everything in the game like I did before. And it was something very scary for us, and also a bit of like, naturally we were kind of insecure and worrying like, okay, were people only like enjoying this game because they could just have so much for free? And so that was scary to us, and we were worried about that. But luckily we were shown that people wanted to stay around. And especially, I think it was hard for a lot of those players who had been playing for free for a long time, and then like we're also kind of didn't want to pay anything, and so we're very like, oh, you're taking away so much, and so we were very worried about those players. But as we realized now, as players that came on after that, we were like, wow, you get so much for free. This is so cool, and like a different mindset from people that are coming onto the game later. And that's something we're seeing today, and that we were hearing from some other podcasters who did a review of the game. They were like, wow, like you got way too much for free, and then we're like, like,
Well,
Yeah. So yeah, and
yeah, so,
monetization's hard. It's definitely
yeah.
hard for a free game, and like Jack said, it's like playing on hard mode. And everybody we've talked to inside the industry, inside Meta, is like, "Oof, that's rough," and it is. And so we've been trying to clarify our pricing model. We've been trying to, figure out good ways to make it just obvious what you get, what's the difference. And I think, a lot of people didn't like the idea, but I think one of the things we said is like, we think people love the game. Like, let's give them enough. Like, let's let them play for free. And somebody could play for free forever. Seriously, like they could play and never pay a dime, multiplayer all day long with their friends. And we're like, but we think we can convince them. We think they'll love the game enough to go, you know what? I want to support those guys. And so we definitely took a risk. And even Meta was like, that's risky. But we were like, we believe in it and we want to see how far we can take it. And that's why we've seen us kind of experiment with different things and try to introduce different ideas and new features. So when Jack said we made that switch to having a tier, we didn't do that until we had a completely new feature, which was the map creator. So the map creator was something that never was taken away. It only came as like almost like an add-on, a DLC add-on to an extent. So we didn't do that until that point hit, and so it was an interesting time. But I think every step of the way we've learned so much, and then we've just reapplied that to the game. We just keep building and stacking our knowledge on the game, and yeah,
yeah.
it's exciting, but it's also
It's very
scary.
much an exciting learning process
Yeah,
for us. This is
yeah.
our first game that we've shipped, and so definitely a ton to learn. But
Yeah.
Why did you
we
decide to
we
go
learn
with
it. And we
free? Why did you decide to go to free like right off the bat instead of doing a paid model?
on App Lab or like on the store.
Just in general, yeah, on App Lab.
Um, on App Lab, it was very much like we didn't even like we never considered like making money on game. Like I don't know, we just were like, oh, we just like want it
Yeah.
to be out there and people to like come play it with us. And we knew, I mean, mainly it was because it was multiplayer, and this is the same reason that we decided not to like switch to just paid when we went to the store, was that we really wanted the game's multiplayer community to thrive. That's where we saw a lot of the best things about the game is in that scene. So we wanted to make sure that it was accessible to everyone who wanted to come and play it. And especially we're an unknown studio and it's an unknown genre, or like people don't really know what real-time strategy is, or they get scared that it's too much
All
like
the VR real-time
complexity.
strategy games aren't like I haven't found one that I'm like, oh yeah, this is super fun. Like
They're
besides
different,
y'all's yet.
right?
Yeah, so we just wanted to make sure that like just because there was a lot of risk for a consumer that was just going to pay up front, we wanted to just invite them in, have it be
Yeah.
free. And yeah,
And the meta demographic kind of skews a little young. So winning them over, like having people try it out for free, I think, and having them love it is easier sell than just saying, "Hey, it's a $20 game or something." So it was not a decision we made lightly. And a lot of people said, "Just make it a paid game. You're crazy." And honestly, looking back, it's probably a lot more work, and we could have made a lot more money by just selling it. But there is something nice about having a thriving community and having a lot of new people coming in every day and be like, "Hi, I'm new. I love your game." And that's so awesome to see in Discord and just listen to their experiences. And I don't know if we would have got as much of that when or if it was a paid game. So it's definitely, a trade-off.
yeah, and also because it's a social experience, kind of like Gorilla Tag or those other games that are free and multiplayer. I think it's the free multiplayers games are like I don't know, I feel like there's something kind of magical about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's like
def-
it's almost like a new pricing model that's kind of emerged pretty recently. Like it's not like the, mobile game where they try to like nickel and dime you for everything. And it's
Right.
not like, you know, you pay up front and then you get the rest of the game. It's like you get a decent chunk, like you provide enough value to people, and then it's like, oh, I want like, that little extra bit.
Right.
I like that. Plus, like, yeah, your community's, I'm sure, 2 or 3 times larger because it's free than it would have
Right.
been if it was like a paid,
For sure.
barrier to
For
entry.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Very nice. So what made you decide to bring Steve on? What was
Yeah.
that thought process? You're like, oh, we need another person.
Yeah. Trying to think back. I remember that Steve just, I don't know how it happened, but you expressed some interest in the game, and mainly it was Nathan and I. We knew, like, okay, we're grinding our asses off, like we just need more, like, basically, like, at the end of the core is like we just need more like humans on the project. We need more, like, you know just like labor in so many areas. And we were like, okay, but we're literally like working for no money, and we're like blood, sweat, and tears in this. So it's like, okay, like, I don't know any friends who want to like hop in. But then Steve had just just wanted to join us for the journey there.
Yeah.
And it was just, we were like, oh, okay. And we started talking, getting to know each other, and just connected over the project. And now we're all like co-founders of the studio.
Yeah.
So
That's
think-
fun.
now there's some money coming in, so
It's
think
paying
that was
off
the
a little
thing
bit
is,
now.
Yeah, I when I first tried it, that was the thing, is I first tried it, and I was just walking through the old tutorial, and it was super basic, and I just was playing and I was watching it, and I said, this is special. I said, this is the foundation of it, but I see how far it can go. And I said, I think I can help. I think I can help take it. And I think I can help if these guys are willing and accept me into the team. I think the three of us can take this to amazing heights. And I was just like, I was so impressed by the foundation and where it could go that I said, I want to be a part of this. And so Jack and Nathan welcomed me, and yeah, I mean, here we are. It's been well over a year now, and we've just had a blast doing it. And it's hard work. I mean, like we said, we work countless hours every day of the week, and it's a lot. But yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and it's so awesome to see that nugget of what I thought would be like special become special to other people. And that's a really cool thing, is like other people recognize the beauty in the game, and that's really, really rewarding to see.
Yeah, you guys really hit on almost creating your own market, I guess, with the like this style of strategy game. Like everyone's like, oh, well, this is literally the only game like this. Like you can't really compare it to
Yeah.
anything else, which is wild. Yeah, it's definitely like a diamond in the rough, which is pretty fun. Y'all have a
Yeah.
fun time trying to top this for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's one of the things I love about the game. And this is, like, I think in contrast to Nathan and I's some of our previous games. I mean, we've never made a game or spent as much time or made a game as great as this one. But just, there's something that it just feels so, like, you always know that there's something that seems so meaningful to do next. Like, it's so expandable, and it has been just since the beginning. And like even now, like, the co-op was just such a natural extension. It's like, oh yeah, like, it's right there, and there's just, like, it feels like it's just has so many ways to, like, it can grow in every dimension. And that's something that's just really exciting about working on the project. Though, one of our biggest struggles is balancing that with, like, okay, this is a business. How do we get said diamond out of
Yeah.
the rough?
Walking
And
around with your change bucket right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you looked
Yeah.
into doing like a publisher route, or like you did a little bit of, like, I guess, a Kickstarter with the Founders Edition? Have you looked
We've
into
thought
other, like,
about
kind of
it.
funding
Yeah.
options?
We thought about crowdfunding. We thought about the donation route. We thought about Kickstarter route. We Patreon. We even looked into VCs. And honestly, we were like, if we're gonna go the tier model where we give something for free anyway, let's win those people over without having them to pledge something. We're like, if we're gonna go this route, we think we can win them over. We don't have to do a big Kickstarter. and we can win them over. And then there's the, VCs that's an interesting topic. We've been approached by a couple people, and there's an idea of like, you take money and up front and everybody's working full time. We can hire new people and we can go at it really fast. But then you lose a little bit of the control and the direction of the company and how far we want to go. And then there's, people want more ROI, and that's a hard model. So we figured we are okay right now. We're okay doing what we're doing, and we're making money and we're doing things ourselves. So we're going to try that route and keep with it. And then we'll reevaluate in 6 months after being on the store. So that's kind of where we're at. Is like, let's reevaluate. But so far we've been having so much fun and being able to do it. They were like, why muddy the waters right now? Like, let's see where we're at in 6 months.
That's where I feel, as Steve said, we were talking to some people approached about VC funding and things, but I feel like we have kind of like such a magic moment right now that I don't know if it's just me being scared, but like, I just don't want to like the idea of just like all that, the chaos and like growing it like a lot right now just feels like expanding the team, getting a ton of money involved, like overhead, like all that is just this like, wow, like I don't know if we've had like such a natural like progression and growth. It just feels like now we're here, let's just see how it goes. We have something special, let's not
and you're not like a startup that's trying to like sell your company in 3 to 5 years for like 10x multiple or anything like that. So like growing at such a rapid pace I feel like isn't necessary per se, and like the bootstrap model is tried and true and like works pretty well. So yeah, I you guys are on a pretty good track. I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. It just might be slower, like a tad bit slower, but like then you still have control and you have that like peace of mind.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's mainly there's not, it just it's because this is like a question. It's like, okay, do you just bite the bullet and just go money. Go?
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it makes things easier but more complicated, and that's the hard thing. It's easy but complicated, and so you have to weigh the trade-offs.
Yeah,
I'm going through that a little bit with my company away from the YouTube channel. Like I have a VR software company that's like more enterprise to B2B based, and like doing some VC funding and like that kind of stuff. And it's like, do we want to accept the money now, or like you guys were talking about in 6 months when like it's going to be a lot more money and worth a lot less as far as like how much percentage I have to give them of the company and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it's a balancing act.
I think something that I don't want to take on VC funding yet. One of the reasons is because I believe that there's a ton of value here that's not fully realized about the game. And I think we'd almost be getting like robbed at this point.
Yeah, like you'd have trouble proving that your company was worth a certain amount of money because it's just a lot of like potential right now. So I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. And we're trying to, I think one of the things that we're going to be, we always have tons of ideas and like directions for like ways to take the game and like add content, and like that's a whole fun part about game development. But the other part is like, okay, well, like what are our big picture strategies of like what's our strategy? How do we grow this further? It's like, okay, the Quest store was our dream for the longest time. Now we're here. Like, what do we do? How do we start thinking about other platforms the same way we thought about Quest store? Like, there's a ton of users here. How can we best leverage just being on the platform? So there's a lot to think about, and we've just been so just grinding on like updates and just the chaos of all that, and stability and like just tons of, so we haven't had a ton of time to think big picture yet.
We'll get there though.
Yeah, that's like you're learning, and you'll end up hiring people, and you'll learn how to be a manager, and then like it's a whole process.
I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, we've been like, okay, after this update, then we're gonna think about we're on but I think right now it comes to just refining our pricing model, because that's going to be essential for regardless of if we're staying on Meta, or also trying to launch on another platform.
Right.
And so that's going to be essential, is just refining the pricing model, figuring out how does this all work?
Right.
But I will say the PSVR 2 is very exciting.
It does look
Seems
interesting.
it does look interesting. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming up on like an hour. So one more question I've got for you, or maybe two. So if your like little brother was going to kind of try to follow in your footsteps and start a VR studio or VR game, what kind of advice would you give him, or like what kind of things that you might do different, or something that you would like suggest?
Yeah, do it young while your parents pay for everything.
There we go.
No. Good question. So I mean, well, this is kind of unrelated, but semi-related. I in the community on our Discord, I hear all the time like, I want to get into game development. Like, what do I do? Like, can you like? I want to start programming. I want to start get into Unity, and I'm just like, it's been such a long journey for me that like, But if there's one thing starting from ground zero, with like wanting to learn to program and be a game developer, and I think at least for me that all just came from passion for doing it. Start small, incremental goals. Just let the passion carry you through that. Make it fun for yourself, right? But if you're coming from somebody who wants to start a VR studio, don't think I'm the best person to talk to. All I can say is, it's like, just commit yourself and have a passion for making a great game, and try to work with your community, and hopefully things will work out.
Yeah.
Like, that's all. Like, I can't give all these strategies or advice for business like that. But that's just that passion working on the game and just being close knit with the community. I think can carry people through. I don't know what the success rate is there, but I think if you're at least, everyone should be doing that if they want to
Make a game in a new
realize their full
genre,
potential.
and
Yeah, the advice I've given to some people in the server is go learn Unreal and Unity. And I'm not saying go learn it from scratch, but they both have learn programs. They both have examples and courses you can walk through. Go take some courses and then go hang out with other people.
Yeah.
Make like a middle school or a high school club, and then make something small. Everybody wants to come in there like, I'm going to make the next, Gorilla Tag, or I'm going to make the next, Civilization. And you're like, why don't you make a game where you can kick a ball through a hoop first? Like, start something super basic and learn all the ins and outs, and then build a bigger game, and then you ramp it up. Like you heard Jack and Nathan did that exact same thing. That's their exact same story. They built small game, a small game, a small game, and they did like 10 or 11 games before they even got to Gods of Gravity. And then even then, that started as something small and just grew. So I think people want to jump in and build a AAA title, and I think that sets yourself up for unrealistic expectations and results. Start small, learn small, and just enjoy the small process first.
I forgot something else in my answer. I think this is one of the most important things, right? Is find. I talked a little about community for your game, but find the developer community. Don't work alone. Like, do not do it.
Right.
You will not have the same level of motivation and passion. And just, I think, we're a small team here, and I'd love if we had more people, and more energy there. But I mean, we have a great energy as our team right now. But find people to work with, and I think a good place to start, if you get in the Oculus Start program. I'm not sure what the application process is, but I know it's a great community of developers, and a lot of them are at the same place, like square one, starting out just making prototypes of the VR games and really trying to get somewhere. So I think Oculus Start is a great place to start.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. And for the people watching and listening, where or what can they do to best support y'all in your game?
Yeah, so go download it on the Quest store. It's
Is that
free.
weird to say still?
You
go download it on the Quest store.
Play for free on the Quest store. If you like it, buy something maybe. And but mainly, I think leave a positive review.
Yeah,
We love
same
seeing the
here.
reviews. We read out them all, and help us show the world how great the game is. Tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
Play co-op on Thursday.
There you go. Try it. You have nothing else to lose. Try it.
Yeah,
Fun.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump off the podcast and go try it again. Go play it some more. So thank you for jumping on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I think this was a super helpful and like very like tactical kind of even like businessy like type of podcast. So I think it was really good for people like jumping in and like wanting to like start a studio and what kind of things they should think about. So really good, really useful. Thanks for jumping on.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
No, yeah, it's been great talking to you and being on the podcast for sure.